Hello there, kia ora. Coming up over the next year, discussions are going to heat up around a change to parliamentary terms. You see, our parliament has had 3 year terms since the mid 1870s, when Winston was first elected. Before that, they had 5 year terms, and part of the reason for that was the lack of political parties. It wasn't the only reason for the change, but a parliament full of independent MPs means it took a lot longer to form a working administration, especially when the fastest way to travel was horse and cart and carrier pigeons were the fastest way to communicate, which meant it took a lot longer to any policies to get implemented or a long time to have those policies create an impact. But 5 years is also a long time when things don't go according to plan. So in the mid 1870s, well, that was changed to a 3 year term with an aim of encouraging faster action and meaning less time between elections for when something went wrong with the government in the eyes of the voters. This, in part, actually led to the evolution of political parties here, a group of candidates who'd be able to quickly form a working government. In the 1871 election, which was held between the 14th of January and the 23rd of February, it took until August the 14th to form a government to be sworn in. In 1890, the first election to have political parties elected, it took from December, when the Māori electorate votes happened, until January to settle the new government. Quick footnote, until 1951, Māori electorates had different election days to general electorates, and to this day, Māori electorates still aren't protected by the need of a supermajority for them to be removed. To change parliamentary terms is a big deal. It requires either a supermajority in Parliament of 75% to change something constitutional, or a majority in a public referendum. And both ACT and New Zealand First have it in their coalition agreement that the change of term length would be looked at or taken to public referendum. This would actually be the third time that's happened. In 1967, 68% of respondents said to keep it at 3 years. In 1990, that number went up to 69%. And the truth is, there are advantages and disadvantages to both options. The most prevalent conversation you're going to hear around it is almost always going to be, well, if it's my team, I want longer terms. A shorter term does mean more political accountability more often. It helps politicians to stay responsive to public needs, and it gives voters more regular opportunity to have their say, especially in an MMP environment where we've seen instability in the past between coalition partners. But a longer term will give government more time to implement long-term policies without the changing whims of the voters impacting their work. If we had 4 year terms, for example, we'd still have fair pay agreements, the Māori Health Authority, 3 water infrastructure planning, unemployment levels would still be considered by the Reserve Bank when setting inflation rates, and civil servants would still be able to work from home on occasion instead of being forced to commute to the office every day, despite 2020 Protoscore research showing 47% increase in productivity with technological advancements, and that same research showing 73% of workers citing work from home leading to better work-life balances, and 86% said it helped to lower stress. The idea of having a 4 year term, though, is widely supported across parties in Parliament. Not only have New Zealand First and ACT both vocally supported a longer term, so has the Greens' Marama Davidson, but with the caveat that it should be done with really close input from tangata whenua and also looking at lowering the voting age to 16 at the same time. Labour's Chris Hipkins says he's open to it, National have said the same thing, and to be fair, I haven't found the official Te Pāti Māori stance on the topic. History unfortunately doesn't hold any clues either as to how people will vote. In the 67 referenda, both Labour and National supported longer terms, and it was in the middle of a 4-term run with National in charge. And it was held between election cycles, and it still failed. In 1990, both parties also supported that longer term, but that came on the back of 6 years of economically tough times under the Longi government, and preceding that was 9 years under Muldoon, which led to voters being kind of dissatisfied with long-term governments. The referendum was held as part of the general election, which saw a change of government. See, this would be the first time since the introduction of MMP that we would be making that choice, and the potential instability of MMP governments will play a factor in how the public vote. Ultimately, though, the arguments on both sides hold water. Yes, a short term lets us hold power to account more often, and longer terms would allow governments to think in longer terms when it comes to outcomes. And even if voters in 2026 chose to change, that wouldn't come into play until 2029. And supporters of both left and right of politics will always argue about what it would mean to have their team or the other side in power even longer, which means it really will come down to what you feel as an individual when it comes to making a choice. And the public will have the ultimate say on the decision once again. Here, the links to other things that come at the end of YouTube videos.